All right, 1 Peter chapter 3. All right, the title of this sermon is called Women of Exile. We started 1 Peter with you guys remember this? Christians are to live as exiled foreigners, resisting the urge to naturalize, and live as Jesus' representatives, persevering in a hostile land. Peter's been writing a set of Christians who have been exiled by their beliefs. There is a disconnect now between them and their culture, how they understand things, how they live, the rules they follow, how they relate, what's important in their life. And Peter called a set of slaves to live in a radically different way than what we would expect. He was trying to help them adapt in a culture that was definitely set out against them. And he's trying to help them. And now we've moved to that. How does this look? Since the gospel calls us to live radically different lives, since it calls us to live as foreigners and not to naturalize and live as Jesus' representatives, how does this truth, how does the gospel affect a marriage? What does it call the wife to do? What does it call the husband to do? And we're here in chapter 3, verses 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we see that Peter gives a command and a call. He says the gospel, in essence, calls wives to be mindful of what their actions communicate to an unsaved world. He places in a culture that is set up against women and against wives. He says, ladies, I am calling you, the gospel is calling you to live different, to live changed. And I'm going to explain how to do this. So he gives us two commands here. Let's open up in a word of prayer, and we're going to get going in this. And this passage has definitely stressed me a bit, and I hope it does you as well. But 1 Peter chapter 3, let's open up in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you for your goodness. God, help me this morning communicate and speak clearly what you have been preparing in my heart. Lord, as passages like this, we can, half of our congregation can completely turn it off because we think it's applying to women. Well, I'm a man, so it doesn't apply to me. But God, help us to draw principles out of this. And Lord, help us as we study this passage, that as men, we will not use passages like this to lord it over and to hold it over our wives in guilt. But God, that we will continue to love and serve as husbands that are following the example of Jesus Christ. God, help us this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. So 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1 says, likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of the wives. When they see your respectful and pure conduct, do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is in God's sight is very precious. For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, by submitting to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, and you are her children, if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. As you guys look at a passage, that a couple things stick out, especially two, and I'm speaking to women, Christian women, we're like 2,000 years removed from this. We are living in a completely different culture. We are living in a land with far more equality than they did as well. One that is not as centered upon the male role. We are living in a culture that does not base itself on the marriage unit like cultures back there did. But a couple things we'll point out that you guys will instantaneously connect with, or maybe not connect, but you'll recognize. One, this word of be subject to your own husbands. Okay, what exactly does that mean? We see that Peter is specifically talking to women who are in an exiled situation. Did you guys catch that? That even if some do not obey the word, the implication there is even if your husband is not a Christ follower, this is how you are to live. Peter is giving them a recipe for thinking through a very complicated situation where the family, for whatever reason, started off as pagans. They lived just like the world and everybody else. And then out of nowhere, the wife, she hears a teacher, she hears and suddenly she believes in Jesus Christ, and she rejects the pagan philosophies of the world, and now she's like, oh, now what do I do? My husband, he goes regularly to the temple to worship the gods. He still offers sacrifices. And then there's me. Now what? And he even talks about here, he talks about do not let your adorning be external and the braiding of your hair. And he also starts talking about sort of a, I don't want to say a dress code, but sort of a way to present yourself out in public as a Christian woman. And so these things, it can feel distant from us because I can wear what I want. All right? It's pretty much, I listened to a radio broadcast, and this, they were talking about how certain people were mad at another person for what that other person wore. And they're like, I can wear what I want. And they're like, okay, but you look like this or this. And it's just like, we're all consumed with that now. In the American culture, we're constantly consumed with how people look and everything else. And so he's even helping, this isn't a new thing, okay? You can look at the history of America, and we were just as consumed with what people wear and didn't wear, okay? It's nothing new. All right, so this easily transitions into our culture now. But there's a couple things to notice. So the first thing he says is here in verses 1 and 2, where he says, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if they do not obey the word, they may be won. So the first one is, he's saying, hey, I need you to live subjected. Now, this doesn't mean you are a pompous, wimpy slave of your husband. What Peter's trying to communicate here is he's trying to bring the grace of God and the gospel to bear in this situation. He's like, show honor to the men in your life, even if they do not deserve honor. Now, the guys are like, amen. Show me honor. All right? Guys, how many of us have messed up in the last week? Okay, there we go. See, so we blow it. All right? We have some awesome idea. We decide to remodel a wall just for the fun of it. Who knows, okay? We mess up at times. Some of us mess up more than others. Wives, live honorably with your husband. See, so often when we look at the word subject, we're like, husband, boss, woman, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Yeah, man. No. I've heard some people literally say whatever the husband says, the wife has to do. And they'll quote verses like this. But what they do is they're completely skipping everything else that is said in the passage. The idea behind this is not subjection, it's honor. It's honor. Honor your husband who does not deserve honor. And it's really specifically unsaved husbands. Sometimes they can't lead. They can't lead. They can't lead and help and walk with their wife toward Jesus Christ. They're walking towards complete pagan philosophies. So in that way in itself, yeah, the husband could be a really nice guy and completely walking the wrong way. There's tension there. He's like, wives, show honor. Now, in this system, so I'm going to try to explain this to you. Okay, so, all right, so you guys see husbands, religion, household, society, blessings. Do you guys see the star there? The colors didn't transition well, I apologize. All right, so this is how the Greco-Roman culture was set up way back in the day, okay? So life revolved. I just lost my laser pointer. Are you for real? No, it's not. It's on. Oh boy. We have a lot of battery erosion here. Yes. Ugh. Hey, Eric, before I forget, could you fix this later? Okay, we'll see if it keeps working. Okay, good. All right, so you have the husbands. So the Greco-Roman philosophy revolved around the role of the husband, okay? Now, as the role of the man, all right, you had the household. As the household was in proper order, as their role in society was in proper place, and as they followed the proper religious system, as life was in balance around these three major pieces, they ended up with blessings. That was the idea behind there. Okay? The wife was here within the household. Her job was to help maintain a proper household. Now, as the household followed the husband and the husband followed the certain religion, his role in society actually elevated. And once all those three pieces were in proper perspective, that resulted in blessing. At any time, one of these started falling out of whack, like break the law here, or he stopped following the certain religion or didn't offer enough sacrifices or whatever it happened to be, or if the household went out of order, blessings would stop. To the point that even society would look at this and says, your household's not in order and your religion's not in order, we'll stop treating you right, and the blessings shrink. So if the wife decided to be a rebel and follow Jesus, you started having the balance. Suddenly the household is now thrown off. And the blessings start to shrink. And society will start turning away. This was a very scary situation. Because a wife, a lot of women in that day did not have the ability to get jobs that supported an entire family. Some did just fine. It wasn't they were necessarily against a woman working. It just was sort of the reality that a woman's role was to help maintain the household, work from the home, sell from the home base there. And if this got thrown off in any way, it led. And so the wife is sitting here realizing, by me following Jesus, it puts me in a very difficult situation. Because I love my husband. I love to eat. I love the success. I love being accepted in culture, and suddenly everything is starting to go out of whack. You guys catching this? So this wasn't just a woman being mean thing. It just recognized, so if she's going to another church, if she's going to the church that has this weird reputation, and the husband's completely okay with it, whatever, fine. He lets her, but suddenly society looks at that situation and says, wait a second, your home's not in balance. Your wife's not following you. Or she's being asked now, because he's a higher ranking person, he has to be a little public with his little religion. And now suddenly, what does she do? Does she go with him and offer sacrifices even though she knows it's a load of garbage? What happens? How does the gospel affect this? And so Peter is trying to walk into this very delicate situation here. Wonder he doesn't want to say, wives, just do what you want, kill your family, love Jesus. Didn't say that. So he's trying to help them weave through a very difficult situation. So by the wife, so often the wife was in a role in the household typically. And you have this question that you have to ask. In this situation where a proper household and proper religion and proper society produces blessings, what is the motivation for the wife? And it is oftentimes one of fear. Because if I do not submit to this, I destroy my husband's capability of making money. And as I destroy his ability to make money, we end up going poor, broke, starving. So it was a system that is built on fear. You guys track with me so far? Hopefully, I don't know, you guys are sort of zoning. We got one thumbs up, okay. The guys are like, yeah, and women are like, we're confused. Great. I'll keep trying to work at this. I'm joking. All right, but that's the system, so it's a little confusing, okay? Now, if you guys look at this, look at into verse 6. You guys will sort of see this. He says, if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. Peter recognized this, and we're going to build into this a little more, but Peter recognizes that this situation is one built on fear. Okay, this is, in essence, a legalistic mentality. It's not just the church that struggles with legalism, it's the entire world, and it's always been, but the expectation is, as I do good here, we will get a blessing here. This is a pagan philosophy. Okay, that is the expectation. As I do good and have this and everything is right and happy, then I get rewarded. The society believes that. So this is what's being forced down here. So, this is what the challenge is. As the wife pulls toward Jesus Christ and God, the motivation should be grace and hope. This is what we've been talking about for the last few weeks. If you guys look at verse 1 Peter 3, let your wife be respectful, pure conduct. Let's go back up. He committed, this you've been called, because Christ also suffered following in steps. Wow, do good and suffer. Whatever, can't find it. Okay, so we have, as the wife pursues here, there's a different thing based on the gospel itself. There's the motivation of God's grace, living, there he goes, following Jesus' steps like we learned about last week. That honor, that is a motivation of grace in the gospel. What Jesus Christ has done and shown me, I should live and do likewise. And it's a hope and trust in God where he asks the servants in the midst of everything, you can hand your life over to a just God. There you go, I found all the verses in my head. Okay, so this is the situation that they're dealing with. And so what he says here, so now we go to 1 Peter 3 again. He says, wives, I want to change this. Wives, show honor to your husbands, even if they do not obey the word. So ladies, in the midst of this very confusing, complicated situation, if you follow God, you will honor the system that is set up. Don't be a rebel, but honor the current cultural system. So keep trying to maintain your household to the best of your human ability, even if your husband is not obeying the word. See, he says, so when they see your respectful and pure conduct, they might be won over. See, wives have a wonderful and powerful ability to create an environment at home. When kids think of their homes, look, dads are cool and all, but we look forward to moms cooking. We look forward to seeing mom, giving mom a hug. We look forward to typically our mothers. They create the environment. This is nothing new. Moms are special. Okay, moms next week, okay? Let them know. See, they create an environment. And so what he's saying here is wives, don't disrupt and break the environment. Show and work with your husband. And this is what's fun. Did you guys notice that he didn't really explain what honor and submission look like? He just sort of uses the word. And I thought this was very fascinating because he pretty much gives a vague definition of what this looks like. Because honor looks different in every single household. It looks honor. What shows how I view honor is different than how Jim, Clyde, Henry, it's just different. And it's based on the culture, how we grew up, what's important to us, etc. Some of us might the only way I will be happy as can be is if I just have a meal every day. I don't care if the house is trashed. Or maybe we're like, you know what? I can't handle a dirty house. I can eat cereal every single day, and I'm totally fine with it. It just depends. Guys are different. All guys want to do is let's just go outside, ride our bikes all day. Okay. It's just different. It looks a little bit different, but the idea is, so he uses this vague term, not because the wife is unable to, but wives, you know what's best in your household. Work together with your unbelieving husband. Work with your believing husband so that you may still be honorable, so that you may, as he says in verse, at the end of verse 2, so that you may be respectful, that your conduct may be pure, so you guys can work together. Wives, do this, even if they're unsaved. So we have to show grace to our husbands, show them honor. It doesn't matter how complicated the system is, by following the Lord, Peter's like, I need you to honor the system that you and your husband have set up. Because maybe it does really bug the husband that you go to church sometimes. We have ladies that have been in here whose husbands, unsaved, have a legitimate problem. Your goal is, as a wife, to work with him and create a system of honor. It's not a fear. It's not whatever. It is literally just like, let's figure out how we can make this work. How can I continue to show you respect and honor? And how can you continue to lead? You're in essence, creating an environment of grace. Now, I do want to say one thing. That's probably maybe in the back of your guys' mind is, is Peter advocating in this verse a culture of spousal abuse? I have heard this verse used by Christians to say it's my job to lead and it's my wife to submit. And she better do it. Or in essence, I'm going to function as God's instrument of wrath through verbal, emotional, physical abuse. They won't say it, but it's what's being communicated. Peter, in this verse, is not encouraging or supporting any kind of abuse. And if it's going on right now, please get out. And please come talk to the deacons and I, who would do our best to support you. This is not, I'm not supporting it, okay? In this culture, the Greco-Roman culture, they didn't even support it. This is a pagan culture. It was not okay with husbands beating or abusing their wives. So if anybody uses this as their we have some good guys here that would love to help you if you're in a situation like that. So, yeah. Anyways, okay, so what this does is, it helps us two ways: fear, law, blessing, submission, create. We already did this. All right, so women, when you honor your husbands and when you show your husbands grace, because when they realize, I don't deserve this kind of love I'm getting from my wife, what you're doing is you're demonstrating the gospel. Do I deserve love from Jesus Christ? I don't. But he showed it to me anyway. You're creating an environment. So for that unbelieving husband, they will look at the situation like, I don't deserve it. I'm not even following her God, and yet she's still trying to do her best to help me out. And it allows peace. And the gospel can spread when there is peace in the home. The gospel can spread when there's peace in society. The gospel spreads when things are calm. So wives, do your best to create a calm environment, one of grace, to the best of your human ability, is what Peter's saying. Now he continues. Says, then he starts talking about clothing, hair and stuff. Says, do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair, putting on of gold jewelry, or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is in God's sight is very precious. So I had to have a conversation, like a 30-minute long conversation with Nikki about this, because I'm a guy. There's some things I just don't understand. And this is one of those ones where I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading. I started asking Nikki, I'm like, okay, I am not seeing what this is meaning. I can't quite get this. Why is Peter talking about clothing? Why does it even matter? And I went in and talked with her, and I did some more research and stuff. Well, we're currently talking about Christians in an exiled situation. Christians in a non-Christian world. And this leads to the second point where women, consider what your actions communicate. See, he just finished talking about a wife and married to an unsaved husband. So that is there in our minds. And he says, do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. So we have unsaved world. You have the wife. She's like, dear, I'm going to church. He's like, okay. And she dresses up to go to church with braiding the hair, the jewelry. She looks nice because she's going to worship God. She's going to be out in public. And the husband's like, as an unsaved man, you are dressing up nice, going out in public like this. Really nice. You didn't dress up this nice when we went on a date, but you're dressing up really nice for this group of people. See, back in that time, when you dressed up like this, you were communicating something. Oftentimes, those who dressed up the snazziest probably did not have the best intentions. And so Peter's like, you shouldn't be going out, drawing attention to yourself and disrupting that family dynamic. Because remember, society is watching you. Society is watching, and they will see an unsaved man's wife, going to church, dressed up a certain way, drawing attention to herself. And what does that start doing to the family? Now society starts to look at that, and they realize, okay, the husband doesn't have his family in order. And if the husband doesn't have the family in order, we all start taking a step back. And as that happens, what happens? The series of blessings in the community there starts to disrupt. So he says, wives, when you go out in public, he's not saying don't look nice. Okay, don't look like you just got out of bed. But what should be communicated by your actions is not what you see on the outside. It should be what's on the inside, the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. So ladies, as you go out, Peter's saying, ladies, as you guys go out, don't draw attention to yourself. Allow your inner beauty, your gentleness, and your willingness to not draw attention to yourself. Let that be what people see. As you try and create a gospel, don't draw this unnecessary attention to the fact that you guys have a home that's not going on the same path. Don't do that, okay? Not look like you just woke up and barely got out of bed and you're just heading into church, or whatever else like that, but just don't draw attention because of the system and how delicate this was in there. Am I making sense there? I know this is a little different. I'm talking about what women are wearing and all this junk, okay? And so it's like, does this make me look fat? Oh, I'm in trouble. It's just like, I don't like it, okay? So we get it. Now, lastly, and this is where we're going to end, okay? And so he uses the example of Sarah. He says, for this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves. Do I say anything? Nope, okay. Do I comment on Fran having her phone? No, okay, all right, anyways. Okay, all right, so this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves by submitting to their husbands, as Sarah. So the example is Sarah that he uses, calling him Lord. And you are her children if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. So he uses this example of Sarah. So if you guys turn to Genesis chapter 12, all the way to the very first book of the Bible. So Genesis 12, way back. And then we're going to wrap up with this because this is the one big giant illustration. So I was sort of caught off guard by this Because I have heard numerous sermons and numerous lessons and stuff. Sarah was not the ideal wife. She actually sort of bossed and misled Abraham a couple times. Because Abraham wasn't, able to make his own choices, So that was sarcastic, by the way. All right, so Genesis 12, 11 through 20, we have this really weird situation that plays out. So there was a famine in the land, verse 11. So Abraham went down, this is verse 11, to Egypt to sojourn there, an exile. So he brings out an exile situation, for the famine was severe. When he's about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and then they will kill me. But they will let you live. In essence, my dear wife, you are hot. They will think that you are hot, and I will die because of how hot you are. Okay, so we have a complication here. Because they will want you as their wife, because you're so hot. All right? So his solution was in verse 13. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. When Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was hot, okay? Very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dwelt well with Abraham. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is it you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here's your wife, take her and go. And Pharaoh gave men ordering concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he said. That's the example that Peter gives ladies. Abraham did not make the best choice here as a husband and as a leader. It actually happened quite a few times. And Sarah honored her husband's really goofy and stupid decision. And Sarah went with him. That's the example Peter gives. Is there any more situation as frightening as that for Sarah? Think about it from her perspective. Foreign land, foreign country, snatched up by a bunch of men, thrown into another household to be some other dude's wife, knowing full well you're someone else's wife in a foreign land. You might not even know the same language. She honored her husband. That blows my mind. God has called women to remarkable things. And so many women end up in marriage situations with men who do not deserve them. And God is like, ladies, wives, honor your husbands. Demonstrate God's grace to them, even if they don't deserve it. And most men realize they don't deserve it. Show honor to them. And ladies, it's very complicated, but be mindful of what your actions communicate. Consider it. I think it's sad. I do, in one way, I think it's sad, but I feel like the actions of women are judged far harder than men are. It just feels like it. I mean, I'm not a lady, so I can't quite speak to that exactly, but I have 3 daughters, and I've been married to Nikki for about 10 years, and so there's a lot of pressure, it seems like, on women and what to wear, on how to perform, and what to do, and look at the magazines, and there's all these just expectations that have been placed on you. And so in the midst of those, just consider what your actions communicate, and let the gentleness of your hearts just come out. Just let God's grace shine